Chapter 2. No knowledge, no martial art. Day of Triumph. Contrary to the boiling atmosphere in the streets, the Earl's house was silent. There are no grand banquets, no celebrations, not even a simple reception. After leaving the dock, even the 1,000 soldiers originally prepared from the expeditionary fleet lined up to enter the city to greet the public for the ceremony, leaving only the deputy. After the Count hurried back to the house, they declined visitors. The external excuses. Lord Earl, who has fought for several years, needs a little personal time to soothe the lonely heart of his wife at home. Despite disappointing many of the people who were originally planning to visit the new hero of the Empire, this sounding excuse immediately gained everyone's support. At this moment, in the mansion of Earl's Mansion, the triumphant hero of the Imperial Navy is facing his own son. His eyes were deep, melancholy and complicated. If it wasn't for the conviction of his wife's ethics. Earl Raymond saw the child in front of him for the first time, and the first reaction was, is this really the seed he planted? Because the appearance of this child is very different from himself. The men of the Roland family have always been known for their majestic manhood. For the standard image of the Roland family man, it should be a tall and burly man with a wide chest, thick arms, a square face, a straight nose. It should be a man with a strong defense. At least Lord Count Raymond did. He is a stature and looks very outstanding in the imperial aristocracy circle. When he was young, he was a famous man in the imperial aristocracy circle. But this little one in front of me, although he is only 3 years old, for the Rowling family, who has always been famous for producing men and defending manhood, he is really too white and thin. I heard that the child was seriously ill a month ago. Maybe it's because of this point that weaker. The future heir of the Count, only 3 years old, Dewey Rowling, looked at his father indifferently. He didn't cry so loudly and powerfully as an old child, which made the Count unsatisfactory. According to tradition, a child who cries louder is more robust. The child in front of him was too quiet. He sat on the bed, looking up at himself, as if with curiosity, as if with scrutiny. The Count felt that he must be hallucinating. How could the eyes of a 3-year-old child have such complicated emotions? While Lord Earl was depressed, Dewey Rowling's mood was undoubtedly more complicated than him. The beautiful mature Countess, with her motherly heart and those actions a month ago, has successfully softened Dewey's heart. But this father who suddenly jumped out. Huh? Where did he come from? He really can't speak yet? The Count looked very serious. He looked at his wife, only to see the tears in his wife's eyes, and he couldn't help but think of going out to sea. I neglected my wife at home. Even when a woman was in labor and needed her husband's comfort most, she could not be beside her, and the only son became like this, which is why I can't blame this poor woman. After a few minutes, okay, dear, our son can't speak. We asked the most knowledgeable teacher in the Empire to teach, and he always spoke. But his health was too weak, and our Rowling family has always stood on military service. Based on the Empire, my son will naturally inherit my path in the future and become an Empire general, so weak is not okay. Well, he is 3 years old, and I think it is time to consider finding him an enlightenment teacher now. The weak body will naturally strengthen after practicing for a few years. What do you think of Alvin? He is my most loyal guard officer, strong martial arts, loyal to the family. I want to start from next month. Let Alpha teach some basic to Dewey. Hearing that his desperate son was going to be trained at such a young age, the Countess could not help but shed tears in her beautiful eyes. But he is still so young. Just because his body is too weak, it is even more important to exercise his physique early. Otherwise, how can we inherit the martial arts of our Rowling family? Thea was very determined on this point, and made a decision with a wave of his hand. The next day, after meeting with the emperor in the palace and accepting the Third Empire's first British Order of Merit issued in public by His Majesty at the celebration ceremony, the emperor announced in public that he would promote Count Raymond to vice president of the National Command. This is already the number 2 figure of the imperial military attendant. After talking with the emperor for a while in a separate room, Earl Raymond offered to remove the title of first-class general of his Empire Navy, surrender his military power, and then came out of the palace. He once again rejected his colleagues' congratulations, and after numerous invitations to the banquet, even the invitations from the great goddess of the Bright Goddess Temple were politely declined. They hurried back to the house. The son of Count Raymond of the Roland family is an idiot, which is no secret in the capital. Watching the countenance of melancholy hidden in his face even during the ceremony, many companions who were friendly to the Roland family could not help but sympathize with him. Of course, some political enemies secretly gloated. Inevitable. At home, the Earl faced his son again. The difference was that this meeting did not have a beautiful countess around him. Standing beside him was the faithful Captain Alfred, who had followed him for nearly 2 decades. The first-class swordsman of the Empire, with a Liu-Yang sword, is recognized as one of the top kendo masters in the imperial capital. He don't know why, Earl Raymond always felt that he didn't like his son very much. He felt that the child's gaze in his eyes was not purely wooden, but seemed to faintly resist. But he also felt that he was thinking too much. What can a 3-year-old child know? And he was on an expedition. The child hasn't hugged him once since he was born. It is only natural that he is unfamiliar with him. Alpha first used a standard courtier's etiquette to kneel beside DWIY's bed on one knee, then held Dewey with both hands, took off his clothes, and pinched Dewey meticulously with one hand. Over again. In the process, Dewey struggled. He seemed very uncomfortable to be touched by a man like this, but the strength of the first-class swordsman of the Empire was not something he could resist. Alpha's expression was serious. He sighed, put down the Count's hair, and then bowed his head to salute the Count, before he stood up and said in a deep voice, "Master, Alpha, you are the most trusted person around me. Don't worry too much, just say anything." The Count sighed. Master Dewey's body is very weak, and he seems to have some congenital deficiency. His bones are slender, and his heartbeat is mixed. This constitution is a little worse than ordinary people. If want to learn martial arts in the future, I am afraid. Gritted his teeth. I'm afraid there won't be much success. What do you think? I don't think martial arts is a good choice for the young master. Let's see if he has any talent in other fields. Alpha said. The Count's face had sunk. Hope of learning martial arts was shattered, and Lord Earl was disappointed for a few days. But he finally cheered up again with the comfort of the beautiful Countess. After all, this was his only son. Although the Rowlings family is based on their exploits, historically, the family has also produced 1 or 2 wise men known for their ingenuity. These ancestors are also not good at martial arts, but they can coordinate the overall situation at the rear, dispatch troops in horses, and win wars thousands of miles away. Outstanding generals do not have to be on the battlefield with outstanding martial arts skills. If they can become outstanding overall command, they can also add glory to the glory of the family. Since you can't learn martial arts, then you're good at studying literature. Just a child who can't even talk, but how to learn? Even if you want to ask a learned scholar to teach him, at least let he speak. It is different from the kindness and simplicity of the Countess. Count Raymond had a strangeness in his heart. He always felt that his son was not unable to speak, but refused to speak. Because the more times Count Raymond went to see his son, the more he felt that his son was not an idiot who knew nothing, but a child who was exclusive to the world around him. Just by looking at his own eyes, he was clearly unfamiliar and resisting, clearly showing emotions, not an ignorant idiot. Under the reward, there will be courage to win people. The Earl immediately offered a reward in the entire capital, regardless of his status, no matter whether he was an educated scholar or a lowly farmer. As long as anyone could make his son speak, he would immediately get a reward of 1,000 gold coins. Such a new thing spread throughout the capital at once, and there were many people who came to apply, even a few distant bards. The tricks of these people were all kinds of tricks. Some took a flute and played in the afternoon in front of Dewey, some played gongs in Dewey's ears, and others deliberately took advantage of Dewey when he didn't notice, shouting behind him. As for someone daring, he offered to throw the Earl's son into the river, so he would most likely ask for help. But the person who raised this attention was immediately interrupted by the Earl's guard and thrown away. What a joke. Even if my son is an idiot, that is my son. Throw it into the river? I throw you into the river first. When the whole capital spread this as a new thing, this biggest problem was inadvertently solved by a servant in the Earl's house. The solution to this problem was that of the servant who was appointed in the dream talk when Dewey was in a coma, Mater. This servant, who was once a groom, was a kind and honest man. He came up with a way to take Dewey to see the horses in the Earl's house. As usual, such a small child is always curious and happy to see animals. Although this method is somewhat low, the Earl agreed with the psychology of trying. As a result, Mater went into the stable with her little master. Coincidentally, the servant who succeeded Matt as the groom was lazy and didn't clean up the horse dung. This day, he walked into the stable and immediately ran into the smell of horse dung. The taste was so strong that when Mater hugged the little master to open the door, he almost rushed out without a taste. At this moment, the little Dewey in his arms uttered a whisper almost in conditioned reflection. Stink me. As a result of this incident, Mater immediately received a reward of 1,000 gold coins, and even the groom who was lazy and did not clean up the horse dung was not punished, but instead received 20 gold coins. Just looking at his son who looked defeated, Count Raymond was a little more certain. The boy did not speak intentionally. From today, he is your teacher. Pointing to an old man in a white robe next to him, the Count looked at his son. This is Mr. Rosiat, who has the title of Imperial Astrologer. He is also a scholar of history. He will be your enlightenment teacher in the future. At the beginning, the knowledgeable Rosiat scholar did an excellent job. 1 year of enlightenment, but Master Dewey, who is only 4 years old, can already write the Empire text. I can write at the age of 4. Although not too great for normal children, it is also rare. Even the Earl, who has always disliked his son, wondered, is my son really a genius? But when Master Dewey reached the age of 5, even the outstanding Mr. Rosiat encountered difficulties. Even when Master Dewey was 5.5 years old, that evening, Lord Earl talked with Mr. Rosiat in the study for a long time. Master, please invite another. The old astrologer looked stunned. Your son is talented, and an old man like me has no energy to train such a disciple. Looking at the expression of the old scholar, the Count's heart was cold immediately. Idiots can see that what the old scholars say is talented and clever is perfunctory. Is my son really an idiot? Can't even such a clever and educated Mr. Rosiat educate him? But, Mr. Rosiat. The Count spoke with a calm face. No, Lord Earl. The old scholar looked uneasy. I beg you, please don't keep me. I can't do such hard work. The old scholar's words were resolute, and the Count could not help laughing. Is it really a hard task to educate my son? Even the countless old astrologer can't complete it, so I'm afraid I can't count on another person. Looking at the countenance somber face, in fact at the moment, The old scholar of Rosiat was terrified. And if it's just a weird saying similar to the sun and the moon are two big balls, it can be barely regarded as the childish saying of Master Dewey. Then, when I heard a child over 5 years old saying something like "too concentrated imperial power is the root cause of corruption," I almost scared the old scholar to stop the heart from beating. In fact, the old scholar who taught Master Dewey for a whole year has already understood that this student is not an idiot in rumors. On the contrary, this child is very smart, even a little bit smarter than his peers. But even the most clever child will not say such a profound topic as commenting on imperial power. Therefore, old scholars naturally think that most of these amazing views were unveiled at home by the Earl, and were accidentally spoken by ignorant children. Count Raymond holds heavy power in his hand and is the number 2 figure in the military commander's command. He has extensive connections in the Imperial Navy. Such a big man who privately slanders the imperial power at home is obviously dissatisfied with the royal family. Think about one more level. I am just an old scholar. I don't want to be involved in any political struggle. It's better to get out as soon as possible. The old scholar's resolute resignation was agreed by the Count, and he almost packed and left the Earl's house almost as if running away. Such a performance made the Count look in his eyes, but he could only smile bitterly. Is it true that his son is really not saved? Dewey quietly watched the teacher who had accompanied him for more than a year left. He stood in front of the window in the attic, watching the old scholar pack his luggage and got into the carriage. Master. Probably seeing the little master looks it a little unsightly, Mater shouted carefully. After successfully making Master speak, he has been playing the role of Master Dewey's personal servant. Mother. Dewey didn't look back, but he could hear that his mood was not high. Do you think ignorance is a happy thing? Mar didn't know how to speak. In fact, there is no culture in this groom's mind. The young master asked this kind of question, apparently making him wonder how to answer. Ignorance? Is the little owner distressing himself? But such a topic, but Mard did not dare to interface. Forget it. Dewey turned back. He seemed to smile, small, I'm at your face, but with a trace of tiredness relative to people in this world. I know too much. I know why there is a sun and a moon in the sky. I know why there is day and night reincarnation every day. I know why there are 4 seasons in a year. And I know why spring comes to fall. But because I know these things, I'm upset. Maybe ignorance is a happiness in this world.